So it's been a few years since my dad passed away, and I wanted to share a couple reflections. I kind of wanted to share this because it talks a lot about the whole philosophy of this channel, the whole must become channel. I've talked about this before, but I want to share some insight as to why I hold this view that what you can become, you must become. So I'm not going to get into too many details about my dad passing away, like how it happened. I've kind of talked about that in other videos, and if anybody is interested, please let me know. But today's the anniversary of his passing, and it really reminds me of something. I've had a lot of people come up to me today and say, hey, like a lot of good friends, say, hey, are you okay? I've had people message me, how are you feeling? All that kind of stuff, right? And to be completely honest, like I just feel very introspective because it reminds me of why I started this whole thing and why I kind of am the way I am, why I believe that what you can become, you must become. So my dad, honestly, I still love him, right? I loved him. He was my best friend. Um, but he was a procrastinator. He was someone who took so much time to get something done, and that really rubbed off on me. And as I get older, I see how dangerous that is and how terrifying that is, because I got the opportunity to see someone be taken away from life and they didn't want to go, right? He was in his 50s when he passed away, and other than passing early, of course, he was a happy guy, he was a relatively healthy guy. And the thing is that in his particular situation, right, he passed away from an illness where he got to see himself kind of degrade. And the thing is that you don't know when your last day is going to be, but more so than that, you don't know when the day is going to come that you might have to watch yourself kind of slowly pass away. Some people pass away in an instant, right? And that can be a shock, especially to loved ones around them, where, someone's there and then the next day they vanish. But there are other circumstances, of course, where it's not just you vanish. It's life changes in an instant, sure, but you're not gone in that same instant. You get a diagnosis, or something happens where you just kind of see the end coming. And the reason I want to talk about this today is because if you don't take the time and the effort now, while you have it, while you have the time and you have the ability to allocate your effort into the things you really want to do, your last day may show up, or even worse, your sentence to the last day, right? That might be in a few months, a few years, might be on its way. And if that shows up, you're not going to be able to experience these things that you might really want to experience. You might want to start a business. You might want to ask that girl out. You might want to take a risk, whatever it is, right? And the thing is that you don't know when that day is coming. And I'm going to keep repeating that. But we all have this potential within us, right? Myself, you watching this video. And look, if you're someone who knows me in real life and you're watching this video, I'm speaking to you too. I'm not just speaking to the audience that I have on the various platforms like X or Instagram or YouTube or school or any of these platforms. I'm talking to anybody who's watching this, including any of my loved ones in real life, including any of the people that I've had the pleasure of speaking to on these social media platforms, is that anything, the thing that I want you to take away from this video specifically and away from this channel is that you don't know when your time is coming. And you've heard this before, but that doesn't mean you need to get up today and go and run a marathon because you said that, one day you wanted to do that. That just means that it's worth kicking your own ass to go out there, at least for a jog. At least put yourself in that headspace where you can at least begin to work towards something. Because I think I also need to talk about the other side of this whole view that what you can become, you must become, right? You hear that, so some people, and this has been brought to my attention, to some people you hear that and it's just like, great, you feel motivated to do something, but maybe what you're looking to tackle is so large you don't know what that first step is that you need to take. And that's only because it appears so large to you, right? You're talking about maybe fighting off this massive monster, right? You want to scale this huge mountain, but you scale a mountain by taking one step at a time. And so really what I would do is, if there's something you want to accomplish, the first thing that I would do is just gather your thoughts, okay? So take out a piece of paper and write down everything that you think you might want to do, right? Just everything and anything. Just write stuff down. And it doesn't have to be in any particular order, in any particular category. The first thing is just gather your thoughts by getting them on paper. Just word vomit onto a piece of paper. I'd recommend not using a computer. I'd recommend using a piece of paper and a pen. Go take an hour, 2 hours, go sit down somewhere and do this. And just write everything you kind of want to do. Just get it out in front of you, right? And then you can begin to focus on one or two things. You can begin to put them into categories and see that there are patterns. There are patterns for things that you want to do. There's things that you really want to accomplish. Some of them might be in relationships. You might really want to know what it's like to be a father or a mother. You might really want to know, okay, well, to do that, you're going to need to find someone to do that with, right? You're probably going to want a family unit. Okay, so how are you going to do that? Well, you might want to take the first step towards dating. And how are you going to do that? Okay, well, there's lots of different things, right? Some that I advocate for, some that I don't. But regardless, whatever appeals to you, you might want to go on an app to start dating. You might just want to go to a bar and say hi to the next attractive person that you see. These are the small steps you can take. You can begin to break these things down. Once you kind of word vomit onto a page, you begin to gather those thoughts, categorize those thoughts. You begin to see these patterns, right? And then you ask yourself to focus on one particular area. Like I said, so it could be relationships, could be finance, whatever it is, right? But however you want to categorize it, there's no right or wrong way to categorize this either. And then you can begin to see first steps that you can take. You can just begin to back solve. Okay, here's what I'd like to be. I want to be this billion-dollar business owner, right? Well, to do that, you're going to need to own $1 million business. And to do that, you're going to have to own a $100,000 business. And to do that, you're going to have to own a $100 business. And to do that, you're going to have a $1 business. And so how can you get someone to pay you $1 and then do that 100 times and then 100,000 times, so on and so forth, and find systems to have you multiply that? But the point that I'm getting at is you are able to, once you kind of, we talk about this mountain that you want to scale, right? But once you take a step back and you're like, hey, what are all the elements? What are all the steps of this mountain that I'm going to need to take? Or like I just gave you the business example, right? And just vomit all of that onto a piece of paper. Gather your thoughts, and then you can see all these things that you want to do. And what I'm telling you today is to just have the courage to do that process and then to take the first step in one of those categories. Because today is the anniversary of someone's passing who had a lot of things they wanted to do, but there was no level of organization to it. There was no level of really thought out planning to it. There's a lot of ambition, right? And that's also why I start this channel, is because there are a lot of people. I'm not speaking to people who aren't ambitious, right? I'm talking to people who are already ambitious. They know they want to do something. They just might not know exactly what it is. They have this energy in them, this fire in them. They just don't know where to put it. They don't know how to organize it, right? And that's why I talk so much about these things all like over and over, like meditation, or journaling, or all these things that people want to just, they see these videos and they might think, okay, yeah, I know, meditate, I know, just journal. But they're the same people who make no progress in life and scoff at these ideas, but they make no progress. And it's like, I just want to bring it to your attention that maybe these things that you keep hearing are foundational for a reason, right? The reason why the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, the reason why it's so tall is because its foundation goes so deep. And again, I'm going to keep saying this, and I understand this is a bit of a ramble, but the reason why I'm sharing this with you today is because this goes back to the whole kind of personal motivation. This is the why behind this channel. Is I saw someone who wanted to become something, and he became a lot of things, right? Friend, father, husband, etc., etc., etc. But there was a lot of things that he didn't become that he wanted to become. And I want to take the time to think about, okay, well, what do I want to become? And I want to share the things that I learn along the way. And frankly, the things that I keep finding are these foundational pieces, right? So many people are obsessed with how can I make $100,000 in a week, right? And right, that is very important. You want to make a lot of money. You want to do it quickly. I get it. But the reality is that if you want to make sustainable progress in any one of these categories, like I mentioned before, relationships, finance, business, personal things like learning a language, learning an instrument, whatever, you need to have like strong foundations, and you need to have repeatable processes. And so those are the things that I focus on here. And of course, we could get into more practical things about how to make this amount of money and how to do that, and sales, calls, emails, all this kind of stuff, whatever, right? Some of them I have more interest in, some of them I have more experience in, some of them I don't, right? But thankfully, I do know people, and I'm networked with people who can definitely, I can get to come on the channel and talk about those things if that's what you're interested in. But I can't tell you how crucial it is to learn to organize these thoughts, because becoming what you must become, right? And the reason why I say becoming what you must become is because within you, you're like, you can't sit still, but you're not walking in a straight line. It's you can't sit still. You have all this motivation. You have all this fire. You want to do something, but you see drop shipping. That seems like a good idea. Then affiliate marketing, and then cold emails, and then sales calls, and like all this stuff, right? And that's all in the business domain, right? But going back to the relationship thing, it's, okay, I know I want to be a father, or I know I want to be a husband or whatever, but you date someone and then you're like, oh no, they're boring. And you go and date someone else and you're like, oh no, they're boring. And you don't really, really get any sort of foundation with these people to really analyze. And again, before I go too far off on another kind of ramble, because you guys are going to have to forgive me, right? I'm at a point right now where there's a lot of things that I feel are absolutely dire to communicate to you, but it is one of those days where I'm allowing myself, my emotions to slightly scramble my rationality, so please bear with me. Returning to the whole what you can become, you must become. Here is the most dangerous part. Okay, and if you've watched this far, honestly, I'm proud of you. Right? Because it's hard to sit and watch a video with no crazy editing and whatever. But look, here's the most dangerous part. Here's the thing that you need to understand. And I'm saying this to you watching. I'm saying this to myself. I'm saying this to my late father, right? If he were here, this is what I would tell him if he were still pursuing his dreams today, if he still had that opportunity. Is that when you constantly think about what you want to do and you allow yourself to bask in the emotion and you have the emotions that motivate you, right? That's good. But when you refuse to combine that emotion with genuine, realistic strategy, right? Like I said, gathering your thoughts, back solving back to the first step that you can take. When you refuse to do that, it's basically a mental masturbation where you consider what it would be like to be this big CEO or this big marathon runner, father, husband, mother, wife, etc. You bask in these things, but the reality is that you don't ever see results because real results, require both. They require that feeling that you must become something, right? That you started in this world as one thing and you are unwilling to leave it having not become that next thing, right? But you also need that rationality that forces you to back solve and identify the first step that in this video right now I'm telling you to take. Because I'm speaking as the son of someone who no longer has that opportunity, even though he was in his 50s. Because something else that I'll share with you that I've come to realize, in my only 28 years on the planet, right? Soon to be 29, but only 28 years on the planet. What I've come to realize is that when you close your eyes and you think of that person you're going to be, there's this weird gap between who you are now and that person you're going to be. And there's this almost blind assumption that you don't consider. There's this blind assumption that in the middle, there's this other person. In my case, let's say there's this other guy that will be motivated enough to repeatedly take the steps that will turn him from that first person to that second person, right? We think about person 1 and person 2, but there's this implicit assumption that this person 1.5 is going to someday come along and force that transformation from 1 to 2. And here's the thing. That 1.5 person is you right now. That is you right now. 1 doesn't exist. That first person doesn't exist. You have to be the person you are right now. That is the only person that will actually be able to get you to 2, that will get you to those results in that, imaginary world, let's say, and not for long imaginary, but currently imaginary world of billion-dollar CEO or amazing father, amazing mother, marathon runner, right? These examples that I keep using. My point that I'm trying to make, if this is a little bit too abstract, right? Like I said, I might be going backwards and forwards because of just the nature of the day and the way I'm allowing myself to film today. But my point is that you're not going to wake up one day and be different from the person you are today unless you make the conscious decision to do so. You're not going to wake up and be that billion-dollar CEO. It's not going to happen unless you right now, right, the minimum wage earner or whatever, makes the decision to take the actions that guy would take. Or that guy, when he's 40, 50, 60 years old and he's at that place and he looks back and he thinks, I'm so glad I took those steps. Those are the steps you need to take. It's that simple. Those are the steps you need to take. And you might not know exactly what those are right now. And I get it, especially if you're one of those people who, like I mentioned, this channel is for. You have that emotion, that fire to become something, but rationally and practically, maybe you have a hard time organizing those things into actual steps that you can take one after the other, right? So that you can leapfrog to where you need to go. It starts with gathering your thoughts. take all that emotion and force it to rationalize, force it onto a piece of paper. All these things you kind of want to be and kind of want to do. And I get it's scary. I get it's hard to do. And here's why it's hard to do. I'll share this with you. I'll shed some light on this. The reason why it's hard to do is because it's so comfortable. If you're a young person, it's so comfortable because it's so comfortable to have people ask you, so what do you want to be when you're older? What do you want to do in 10 years? Like, who do you want to be, right? What do you want to become effectively, right? The reason why is because that almost suggests to you that you have infinite possibilities. In that moment when someone's asking you, right? Let's say you're in high school or a little bit older, right? And someone says, well, what do you want to do when you graduate or this or that, right? Even though that's so annoying to be asked that question, right? Because it forces you to make this decision and like act like an adult when you're like not yet in a lot of cases. It's also very comfortable because you kind of subconsciously accept this, wow, I have infinite possibilities of who I could become and what I can do. But when you force things onto a page, this is why so few people do this, right? When you force things onto a page and then force yourself to back solve and determine the first steps for these, few categories that you can take while you have this time on earth, right? You can't do everything. When you force yourself to rationalize this emotion and take this, what I can become, I must become emotion, and put it onto a page and take the first step towards becoming that thing, when you do that, the reason why it sucks is because you're at that very moment admitting that you are not infinite. You will, at some point, reach the exact same fate that my beloved late father did, which is passing away. I will, you will, and that ultimately is the conclusion of this video, is that we all will pass away. And if you do not force that emotion within you to rationalize, if you do not face the uncomfortable truth that's coming regardless, if you are unwilling to face it, then you will unfortunately pass away the way my father did. Watching not only his, the rest of his life kind of slip away, but also face the fact that he didn't use the time he had on the planet the way he would have absolutely loved to. And don't get me wrong, he was very happy. And he was very accomplished in a lot of ways. But there are a few ways that he wasn't. And I want to honor him today by drawing the lesson out from this circumstance and from his experience and sharing it with you. So I really do hope you found some value in this video. Again, please, for the third time, please excuse my delivery in this video because emotion was absolutely kind of mixed in with my kind of rational delivery. But that's something that I wanted to allow. I wanted you to see this side of things too. And occasionally I do upload these sorts of videos, and I'll be doing so more often because I think it's important to see all sides. And so rationalize your emotion, get it down on a piece of paper, back solve, find that first step. Do not procrastinate. Of course, that's easier said than done, but it definitely helps when at least you can see what first step you need to do, first step you need to take, which is uncomfortable. But ultimately, this is the way that we really do become what we must become. By understanding what that is, taking the emotion that drives it, identifying the first step, and then taking it. And then keep taking that first step towards the new person that you want to be, right? It's just a series of first steps. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Spencer with Must Become. Always remember that your potential is your obligation, and so what you can become, you must become.